friends, and welcome to Authority this week. I am E. Probilski, your host, and this is my friend Kevin McLaughlin. He is a USA Today bestselling author. He is the oncoming president for uh, Novel Inc., or Novelist Inc., right?
Novelist Inc.,
Thank
yes.
you. My brain is useless this morning. That's what I get for not having enough caffeine. And he has done a ton of deep diving into AI, which is why I wanted to talk to him about this. You may know him from his books, The Adventure of the Starship Satori, Blackwell Magic, Quantum Dragon Slayer, the Steel Dragon series, Dragons and Dice, and a whole bunch of other books because this man is incredibly prolific, and how dare he? He is a delightful human being, and I'm so glad he's taking time today to be on the podcast. So thank you for being here, Kevin.
No problem at all. Glad to.
Yeah.
Glad to.
Yeah. So I brought you on largely because you've done a lot of educating about AI in author spaces. You've taught me a lot. And I wanted to bring you on because there are a lot of misconceptions, there are a lot of fears, there's a lot of feelings about AI, very reasonably so. And you come at it with very factual information, you've always got sources, and I've found it to be really useful to help me shape my understanding. So I really wanted to dig into it because, as it has been for, what, a year now, AI is the topic that everyone wants to fight about and everywhere.
Pretty
So,
much, yeah.
yeah. Um, so I wanted to start out with a notice to everybody watching this. This is not going to be an anti AI or a pro AI episode. I'm looking to give you information so you can make judgments for yourself about what you are and aren't comfortable with. So I'm not going to pressure you to stop using it if you're using it. I'm not going to tell you you have to if you aren't. You do what you feel is right for you. So that's the general vibe here. There's not going to be any kind of preaching because while I'm planning on going to seminary, I don't want to preach right now.
And
So,
so people understand my point of view on this stuff too. It's I almost quit writing when I once I realized what AI was and how it was going to impact the industry. I was so scared that if this is the way it's all going to go, that I'm done.
yeah.
That's almost where I went, and instead I learned about it, figured out what was going on, and came to a better place for my own craft.
Yep.
Um,
So let me start with I want to begin this conversation with the environmental impact because even people who don't hate AI on its face, a lot of them are talking about the environmental impact of AI and the server farms and so on that have been popping up everywhere. As is very reasonable because that is a big deal and it
mhm.
can be a big problem. However, you brought something up to me that I think other people really need to know about that. And
About the what the
the water
way it
consumption and everything.
impacts the water consumption, how it impacts the
Yeah.
environment, all of that stuff. And the reality is it does.
Mhm.
Any use of any streaming technology has a substantial environmental cost associated with it. So every time we stream Spotify or Apple Music, every time we watch Netflix, every time we play Minecraft online with a bunch of friends, every streaming activity we do, the one of the worst is TikTok.
Yep.
TikTok is especially bad. But every streaming activity we do has an environmental impact. And so I actually went and did the math. I went and looked up the environmental costs of a bunch of different streaming activities and social medias and things, and I found out what the cost was compared to, say, a ChatGPT prompt. So one
Yep.
ChatGPT prompt is equal to about 30 seconds of using Facebook, 12 seconds of scrolling Instagram, or 6 seconds of watching TikTok videos.
Yep.
That's this is not saying that, oh, AI is okay because we're doing these other things too. No, but it is actually important to me that we find ways to exist to coexist better with our technology and our
Yep.
planet, I guess. Like if I find myself listening to an album all the time, I download it. I don't just
Yep.
stream it over and over again.
Right, so it's about a holistic approach to environmental resources, not just singling out AI as the one bad guy in the room, because there's a whole lot of them. Amazon server farms have been an issue in every community they've popped up in since before AI was a thing. They've been a massive problem. So, speaking inclusively about everything, which isn't to say we should be flippant and careless with how we use our
Agreed.
technology, because we shouldn't be. I wouldn't use AI for flippant and careless things as a rule, both because of the environmental impact and because I feel like relying on the technology starts to mess with your brain. But That's a different conversation about psychology and people falling in love with their AI friends.
Oh yeah,
That's a
yeah, I've seen
whole
that too. Yeah,
that's a whole thing. But the fact that streaming and so on uses pretty much the same volume of electricity for a pretty short amount of time. Like, we spend more than 6 seconds on TikTok when we open it, let me tell you. I spend way more than 6 seconds on TikTok. So if I'm going to talk about environmental impact, I've had people come at me in TikTok comments about environmental impact, and it's like, well, the app we're on right now is probably comparable.
yeah. So these things are important to take into account. The AI use is growing. So
Yep.
AI use, global total AI use is expected to surpass the environmental impact of YouTube by late 2028. Um, it is growing. It is a growing
Mm-hmm.
concern. So we need to take that into account as time goes on. By the end of 2028, the total global use of AI may have the same environmental impact as the total global use of YouTube does.
Yep.
And how many of these technologies do we continue stacking on, and how much of an impact do these have on the environment?
And are there better ways we can use? Are there better ways we can cool them? Are there better, like, are we looking at renewable energy resources rather than
Hmm.
other energy resources to power all of these things? Because technology is not going back in that bottle.
Right. And
So,
they've gotten better over the last 3 years. I mean, the early numbers, we all saw the early numbers on
mm-hmm.
AI use were terrible. The server load was insane. It was really bad for like GPT-3
Yep.
and other of the early texts like that. It was bad. And what happened was they made it better because when it's better, it's cheaper. So
Mm-hmm.
from a corporate perspective, cheaper is good.
Right.
So
And
it happened to also be good for the environment.
right.
But
Everybody wins in that circumstance. Less expensive to maintain and less power usage and less water usage is obviously an improvement.
right.
And so thank you for sharing that. That was something I really felt was super important to hear about, because that isn't being talked about enough. People talk about the environmental impact of AI, but they lose the bit about the other streaming services and technology that are being used. Like, even whatever platform you're watching or listening to this podcast on right now is doing the same thing, unfortunately. And that is the reality we live in. So,
Interesting thing is that YouTube is doing a very good job of trying to offset their carbon usage. They're not quite there yet. I think they're planning on being carbon neutral within a few years.
that's
That's
awesome.
their goal. Yeah. So like I applaud that sort of thing. And the more
Definitely.
companies that can try and do that kind of thing, I'd love to see, like, say OpenAI or one of the other big AI companies. Anthropic might be a good one to do this. Attempt to do the same thing and
Yep.
carbon offset all of the damage that they're doing with their stuff. I would love to see an AI company do that.
That would definitely help with some of the people who have strong feelings about the environmental impact. Not saying that having those feelings is bad, because I agree with them. It's awful, and the communities that a lot of these companies are buying spaces in are getting really hurt by the presence of these server farms. Unfortunately, AI is not the only culprit in that. There are many. So, we've covered the environment, and that is one of the big things I wanted to talk about. The other hot issue for me today, because I got fired up about it yesterday, is AI detection and people saying, well, I know that this thing was written by AI because this person used the Oxford comma. And that, like, I was so mad about that yesterday. I made videos about it. So, um, the AI detection, in my experience, isn't very good. So, how do you tell if something's written by AI?
The answer is you can't. The answer is there is no legally allowed form of AI detection at present,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there is no, if you go to a courtroom and say this was definitely AI and the judge says, okay, prove it, there is no legally admissible form of proof short of actually, like, opening up the person's computer, or you were physically present and watching them do it, or if somebody left a prompt in their book and then published it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's probably good evidence there too. But short of something like that, there is no way to prove whether AI was used or not. Steph Pajonas just wrote a really good article about this recently on her Substack, where she was talking about the paradox of AI detection. The thing is that the only people who can really spot AI use reliably are
Mm-hmm.
the people who use AI like
Yeah.
regularly. So if you're using AI every single day and you've written, like, you've used AI to write hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of text, you can probably actually spot the patterns of sentences and the structure of the way it composes
Mm-hmm.
paragraphs. There's a style to the way AI writes, just like there's a style
Right.
to any human author. And if you've read enough AI material, you'll be able to usually say, I think that there's AI in this one. You'll never be able to know for sure, but
Yep.
you might have a good guess.
I have
But if you're
definitely.
not using AI, right? Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. If you're not using AI regularly, checking it is hard.
There's the right time.
I've got a reasonable detector for it because one of the things I do as an editor is, and I don't mean a tool, I mean just me, because one of the things I need to do as an editor is I need to identify authors' writing styles and patterns, and that's one of the things that as an editor I'm really good at with the autism pattern recognition. So I can usually look at something and be like, this feels like AI. I'd never like accuse somebody of it because that would be crappy because there's a
Hmm.
non-zero chance I'm wrong,
Hmm.
but I can look at something and be like, question marks. But it isn't proof. And I would never try and bring it to a court, and I would never use that to try and speak badly about somebody because there's a significant non zero chance I'm wrong, particularly since AI was trained on human authors. And as such, the reason it uses M dashes is because authors have been using M dashes for a really long time. It likes the Oxford comma because we use the Oxford comma. It's not things like an M dash or a comma. It's a vibe, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
you can't program a
It's a
vibe.
Yeah, it's a certain stylistic, the way the sentences are written, the way the paragraphs are formed and
Yep.
shaped. You get a feel for the way it works after a while, after you've seen enough of it. I do
Mm-hmm.
editing as well. I've done developmental
Yeah.
editing for a lot of people, and there's been a couple of occasions where I've been like, "Did you use?" I asked the person, "Did you use AI, in your writing of this?" Not because I'm trying to beat on you, or but
Right.
because it's helpful for me to know that because then I can better advise the person about what they need to do in order to improve their story at this point.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because I've definitely encountered times where somebody has used AI to write an entire book and they don't actually know the book well because they didn't really read the book. They just kind of prompted AI to write the thing, and then when you start asking them questions and trying to dig into fixing it, they can't because they don't know what's actually on the page.
Right.
And that's a separate discussion to be had with the author because usually a
Hmm.
developmental edit I'll be like, yeah, here's the things you need to fix, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I need to share this about my magic system, but somebody who didn't write their magic system will be like, oops. They'll have no idea what they did or how to fix it. And
Yeah.
not to say that AI usage is necessarily a bad thing. I know plenty of people who will use it to help them iron out a paragraph that isn't coming out how they wanted it to,
Sure.
or help them figure out like how to name characters or like bounce plot ideas off of. I'm not demonizing any of that.
Hmm.
I'm just talking about the people who write the entire thing and then send
I
it.
actually have no issue with. I have developmentally edited books that were written entirely by AI before.
Yeah?
I have no issue with writers who do that, provided they are doing the work afterward to turn it into something that will delight their readers. My
Mm-hmm.
personal feeling, and this is just my personal feeling is that as authors, we have an obligation to our readers. We have a contract with our readers to constantly try to delight them, to try
Mm-hmm.
and give them something that's the very best work we can provide, right?
Yep.
If somebody is doing that using AI as part of their tool, I have no issue with that at all. If somebody is just having AI spin something out and then tossing it up on Amazon without doing any cleanup or revision or
Yep.
turning it into something that's actually readable, yeah, I think that that's not really very useful, but I don't see it any different from, like from a lot of other first novels. It's never going to
Yeah.
sell very many copies. Readers aren't going to see it. It's going to vanish into the depths of Amazon. I don't really need to worry about that stuff.
That's true. The volume of it is a little bit problematic simply on a tech level. I've found that the volume of AI uploads has become a bit of an issue for the algorithm, but since I'm not married to Amazon, I don't use KDP Select. So it's not a massive problem for me because I know for a lot of people who are in KDP Select, they're having issues with the page reads and the amount of money getting divided amongst people in a lot of the AI books, kind of making the pool funky.
Yeah, I haven't, I'm mostly in KU myself, and I
Yeah.
haven't actually seen that much of it.
Really?
I think that no, I haven't. I don't think what I'm seeing for the most part is AI books just don't sell. They might sell like three, four, six, 10 copies if it's raw AI I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about, if somebody didn't
Yeah.
put any work into it afterward.
Right.
Um, I'm seeing they might sell a few copies. They're never going to sell any copies of book two because the books are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if somebody went and took an AI written book and then put dozens of hours of revision work into it to turn it into something good, then it's indistinguishable from something that was written by a human, and people are going to buy it and people are going to like it because people aren't going to be able to tell one way or another. It's just a good story at that point.
Yep.
And if it's a good story, yeah, people will buy it. But if somebody's just like churning out a book with an AI and tossing it up on Amazon,
Yeah.
it's just not selling. So it's not a threat. It's not a problem.
Right. I'm talking more about the individuals who I've heard of, and I've seen a few times where people will generate 30 books in an afternoon and try and sell those. Those are the ones that I'm identifying as problems, not people who use AI to help them write their book and bounce things off of and come up with ideas and maybe even generate some of the text for them. I don't really like the idea of AI generating text for me because I'm a writer because I love writing. And so taking the fun parts away from me would not be a boon to my job.
I 1000% agree. Like I said at the beginning, I almost quit writing over this stuff, and it was
Mhm.
because I was like, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
I spent years, millions of words training myself to remove revisions slowly from my work, to need to do less revision,
Yep.
less editing, less cleanup. And AI was taking the part that I loved, the drafting part,
Yep.
reducing it down to like a couple of hours, and then taking the part I hated, the revision, and magnifying
Yep.
it. And I'm
Yep.
like, no, this
Like
is
this is
taking the part
backwards.
that I hate and doubling, quintupling it, and
Right.
this is taking the part that I love and is shrinking it down to this little slice. And it's like if somebody took my chocolate cake and replaced it with a pile of boiled vegetables of whatever kind you want, badly
Boiled cabbage.
overboiled vegetables.
Overboiled
Sure,
cabbage.
yeah, sure. um and so but what I finally came to the conclusion of was I don't have to use AI for anything that I don't want to. I don't have to use AI for the things that I enjoy, so I don't use
Hmm.
it for the things that I enjoy.
Right.
I
Like.
use AI for stuff like transcribing my dictation or transcribing my
Hmm.
notebook pages,
Yep.
or this background here, chopping out the
Right.
background around my head, stuff like that.
Right. Like I use AI to help me like figure out hashtags for social media because that is just I hate it. It's like
Sure.
trying to stick my hand in a vat of acid. I use it to help me figure out what what might be a topical subject to discuss on a blog post. I don't have it write the blog post for me, but I try and figure out like what topic do I if I'm drawing a blank and I'm just too tired to think of something, I will ask like, "Hey, what are some topics right now that are hot that I could probably consider? I'll choose one and write it."
Mhm.
Like it
And on the flip side, I know some people who love writing with AI because for them, drafting was always the part that they disliked, and revising it afterwards was the part that they loved.
Mhm.
And so with the AI, with them writing an outline and then the AI writing the draft, and then they spend the dozens and dozens of hours,
Yep.
scores of hours, revising and cleaning it up and making
Yep.
it their own work and
Rewriting
stuff.
it basically.
I got no problem with that at all. Why
No.
would I? Why would I? It's not my cup of tea.
No, not mine
But
either at all. And I can understand, like, but the human is doing the work to create the thing. Even if the AI spits out the draft, the author is looking at it and going, "This isn't really what I want it to say," and essentially using that to rewrite the story. Because that's some people's method is they'll spit something out, hate it, and
yeah.
then write the book the second time after they've shoveled all
Hmm.
the sand into the box and hate it. So I'm not gonna. That brings us to the ethical uses of AI. I know there are some people who say there are zero ethical uses of AI because it was trained on people's works without consent, and I understand and don't disagree with the fact that the training was done in a really bad way. I don't like how it was trained. At this point, however, it will not just spit out plagiarized content on purpose. You can't make it spit out plagiarized content because it'll be like, no, I don't do that. It will pull quotes from things, but even then you have to check everything because it doesn't quote super well a lot of the times. It hallucinates a lot, which is great for fiction, not good for nonfiction. The hallucinatory properties can be great for fiction.
It can be, I guess. Yeah. I find that if, as far as the plagiarism issue goes, I know this is a big concern for a lot of people. All of the existing major AIs, the GPT and Claude and the rest of the Gemini and the other
Mm-hmm.
big ones, they've all been specifically programmed to not plagiarize their training material.
Mm-hmm.
So while you can get it to give you a quote from something, if you were specifically request it, it will not accidentally quote something.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a sense if it's a brief, like 3-word sentence that has appeared in a million different books. Yeah, that might
Well,
show up,
yeah.
obviously, but it's not going to plagiarize chunks of content from any source works, from any training works in its output. they have all been deliberately designed to not do that.
Hmm. Which is good to know. And I also understand that, like, with image generation, it again doesn't really, it cannot recreate something a human made. It can't just like, it can do things in the style of maybe, but even then, it's not very good at that. It really isn't. Like, it can choose the same color palette, but I've got some artist friends, and I've seen it attempt to generate things in their style, and it can pull up the same color palette, but it really can't mimic them because it doesn't have the soul that made the artwork. It can make something that on the surface looks like it, but it lacks the soul.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that that's fair. You know, like the thing is, if you go and say, like make something in the, make me images in the style of pick some famous painter,
Hmm.
um, and you create enough of them, you create like a couple hundred images, a few of those will be indistinguishable from something that the actual famous painter created. So if you go and ask it to create like 200 Picassos,
Yeah,
eventually some of those images are going to actually look like something Picasso might have done.
that's a monkeys
That
and typewriter situation more than
a
anything.
little bit, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly right.
And I don't believe, like, I could see using some AI images as part of a composite for something for a cover, but again, one of the things that I don't think we need to replace cover artists with AI. I don't think that's a good idea. Also, partially because cover art is more than just the image in the background. A lot of it is the text, it's the composition, it's the colors, it's the
Mhm.
understanding the genre. There's so much more to cover design and the art of cover design than just pretty background image. And
I'm I'm seeing AI used for covers in two ways right now. One of them is fairly successful, and the other one is less so. The successful way is when you have somebody who is a skilled artist who takes several different AI images, builds a composite out of them, and then
mm-hmm,
adds typography the same way as they would have before. So essentially, instead of using DAZ 3D, I've made hundreds of covers. Instead of
mm-hmm,
using DAZ 3D to make a person and have them pose them
yep,
standing exactly how you want them, and then throw in the background and then do some overpainting to make it
mm-hmm,
look just right, now you're doing the same thing, but you're using AI images for it instead. The
mm-hmm.
reason why is because in a lot of genres, the AI stock is just much better. There's so much.
It's
The
hard in
stock is
fantasy.
so limited for science fiction and
Yeah,
fantasy,
sci-fi
and
fantasy. Oh my god.
we've all used the exact same dragons and starships over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over until it's nuts.
Yep.
But now we have an infinite number of dragons and starships.
Yep.
And so we can just have it generate a dragon, cut the dragon out, paste it into the image, add the character, add the hero, add the background, and now we have a fully copyrighted cover because it's a photo bash cover. It's
Yep.
a composite. And we have something that nobody's ever seen before. It's unique, it's new. And the artist's skill matters a lot.
Yes.
And
And
there's where we, sorry.
no, that I agree with you on that. My concern is we come into a position where, like, a lot of people will say, well, why don't you just hire an artist to paint a dragon for you and use
Mhm.
that dragon instead? And I I know that, like, Adobe Firefly, I think, is theirs. They do the composite images, but the whatever images are used for the AI content, the contributors are paid. Canva's doing something similar. They paid people for the training material that they are now using for their AI source, as I understand it.
I don't know about Canva. I do know about Firefly, and what it is each contributor gets a small percentage of every dollar that's paid in.
Okay.
So it's they can't divide out. Well, these six
Well,
images were
yeah.
used to create this dragon. It's a gestalt of all of the
Mm-hmm.
images that have been used. All of the images that were trained create the AI, and then the AI draws from zillions of different images to create each new image. So it's not something they can trace exactly which images were used to help generate
Mm-hmm.
this one image. But everyone who contributed to the training of it volunteered to do so.
Yep.
They all it was affirmative consent for all training works that were used, and um, they all get paid. We all get paid.
Yep. Canva
So
is the same way. I did a bunch of research into Canva when their AI came out, and they said that the stock photos and the images they used were paid for and explicitly consented to for AI training purposes, and they are actively trying to compensate people whose images have been used. Basically, the same model that Adobe is using. I'm not a
that's
fan of
terrific.
Adobe for a lot of things. I'm really not, but, like, I agree with that model, and I think that that is an ethical way of handling AI. Yeah, Adobe
Yeah,
makes me go, but
I
like
found myself in the weird position of being like, wow, Adobe did the right thing. How
for
did that
once.
happen?
Right, like I was like, what parallel dimension did I enter into?
I
I'm not
know.
okay with this. I need an adult. But yeah, Canva did the same thing, and they've been very transparent about that. And they have been very clear that there anybody who contributed to that consented and is paid. And I still believe I enjoy pretty covers as much as the next person. I have noticed that there's been since computer images came on the thing, we online really, we no longer have the beautiful Michael Whalen oil paintings of the 80s for covers anymore because nobody can afford them because as much as that is fine art that I adore, like the Anne McCaffrey's covers are iconic.
Mhm.
Nobody can afford that realistically because big publishers aren't spending that kind of money on books anymore. The industry has changed a lot, and I cannot spend $10,000 on a painting for a book cover. I
Yep.
want to, but I can't. And we've and since we've gotten into PC modeling and 3D modeling and so on, the ability to create something like that is different than it used to be because before you used to have to hire Michael Whalen or somebody of his caliber to create an idea like that because nobody else could. 3D modeling made it more accessible to other people. And I'm not saying that there is not a place for people like Michael Whalen because there is, and that man's art is
Absolutely.
amazing. If you can afford
Mhm.
Michael Whalen, please hire him. And my cover artist, I have an actual cover artist. She uses stock photos and so on. She does an amazing job. Human being, fully paid. And I believe that when we can hire a person, we should be hiring a person. However, if we're hiring a person to get stock art from Amazon stock art or get photos or whatever, deposit photos, or whether they're using Firefly, I'm still hiring a human being to do the work, and
That's
human
my
beings
take too. Yeah.
are still being compensated. Versus
Yeah.
the idea of me going on to Chat GPT 5 and generating a cover and walking away with it because that won't work anyway, and I don't own the copyright anyhow. It won't
It
be
does
good.
not. It does not work really well. I'm no. I'm less worried about the copyright in that case because most people aren't going to steal a cover
No.
anyway. It's just not done. Nobody knows for sure that it's AI. Nobody knows for sure that it's unedited AI. And if it's edited AI, then maybe it does have a copyright. So people
Yeah.
aren't going to go stealing covers for the most part. But the reality is that most authors don't know what a good cover looks like, and they don't know how to do good typography, and they don't know how to do a good design that's going to work well.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, we are seeing a lot of books go up that are very, very blasé, mediocre covers. A lot of them going up with very dark covers because
Yep.
ChatGPT tends to produce very dark images. Um, and it's not going to work. It's not going to sell books.
Mm-hmm.
And I would still really suggest hiring an artist unless you are one yourself, or unless you
Yep.
want to spend the time to learn those skills.
Yep.
I would still really recommend hiring an artist so that you can get a good job.
Because ultimately it's an investment. Whether you're investing money or investing time, you have to invest in your writing and in your product. Because if you aren't investing, it's not going to go anywhere. Much like the person who generates the text but doesn't go and edit it afterwards, they're not investing in their art. They're just hope.
Right.
It's the same kind of person who wants to put a vanity project up on Amazon and is dismayed it doesn't sell because they think books are quick money.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a $35 cover from getcovers.com is going to be better in most cases than a raw AI cover.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to design good covers, then really hire somebody, even if it's somebody like Get Covers. That's the Bush League for middle arts, newer artists,
Mm-hmm.
and you're helping Ukrainian artists at the same time. So
I
I like
love
working
that.
with those guys.
I love that. If I
Yeah,
didn't already have a cover artist I adore, I would definitely like if it's supporting Ukrainian artists, I'm all in on that. So if you don't have
yeah,
a cover artist yet and you don't have a ton of money, get covers.
yeah,
Um, so all of these things put together, right? We've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about the environment, detection of AI, ethical uses of AI, whether or not you find something ethical or not. What is the future for us? Because I know there are people out there saying that AI is going to replace artists, going to replace editors, going to replace authors, and we're just going to go work nowhere, I guess, because AI is going to take those jobs too. So, like, what do we see as the future for us? Because I know what I see, but I'm curious to know what you see too.
Well, the tech guys would love for us to believe that by the year 2035, all jobs will go away. Doctors will be replaced by AI, dishwashers will be replaced by AI, writers will be replaced
Yep.
by AI, lawyers will be it's like
Because
everything
that's
will
been
go
successful so
away.
far.
The employment apocalypse is upon us. No, I don't think that that's actually true at all. I mean, these apps are amazing in some ways, and they're really good at certain things, and they're really atrocious at others.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think we have a lot to worry about in terms of in terms of our employment future as artists. So right now, cover artists who use AI are still doing a great job collecting business. At least a fifth of the science fiction and fantasy covers on Amazon in the top 100 on any subgenre in those genres on Amazon, at least a fifth of them used AI as some for some portion of the art.
Hmm.
Probably more than that,
Probably.
honestly. It's growing really rapidly too. So artists are like skilled cover artists are starting to hop on board and be like, okay, I'm going to start incorporating some of this stuff
Hmm.
because I'm just going to incorporate the pieces that really work for my workflow and I'm going to make it work for me. And that's helping. For writers, the writers who are using AI to help them write faster, better stories, to at the end of the day, the writers who are using AI to help delight their readers more are going
Hmm.
to succeed. And the ones who don't, the ones who are just churning out books that nobody's reading anyway, they're going to fade away. They're going to find some other, get rich quick scheme within a year
Yep.
or two, and then they'll stop.
I
For
also,
us,
yeah, sorry, go ahead,
for
please.
us, the people who are still trying to go ahead, I think that the answer really focuses falls down to a focus on delighting our readers.
Hmm.
If we're delighting our readers, then we're building fans.
Yep.
If we're building fans, then we're building people who are going to read the next book and the one after that and the one after that forever.
Hmm.
So long as we're working to delight our readers, then we're probably doing it right. Because even if we screw up and do something that didn't delight our readers, we can be like, oh, that didn't work. I'm going to try this instead
Yep.
and refocus. So long as our true north remains delighting our readers, I think odds are we'll probably end up doing it right.
I'm inclined to agree. I also don't for like there are plenty of highly successful, amazing artists and authors who aren't using AI. So it's not something you have
Mhm.
to adopt in order to
Absolutely
be
not.
successful. You like Brandon Sanderson writes like a machine and that man does not use AI. He's just built that way. And
Mhm.
respect to him for that. And there are people who don't do that and never will. There are people who might use it for certain things. I've tested it for various different things. As an editor, I've tested it in editing and I found it direly wanting. And every time I've tried it, the only, like, I've used things that are AI in this sense being things like the large language models, big machine
Mhm.
learning. I'm not counting things like spell check as AI per se in this conversation. Like, it could be argued that it is AI to some degree, but I don't use spell check for editing really anyway because spell check is also often mistaken. It makes horrendous mistakes, particularly when you get to sci-fi fantasy and it's like that's not a word. I'm like, "Oh, yes it is. I made it. Shut up."
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Or punctuation. It often makes punctuation errors, like egregious ones. It wants me to add commas in places where there should be no comma ever, according to the CMOS.
Mhm.
So it's not going to replace us. I recently got very upset because I encountered a company that was claiming that AI was going to replace developmental editing. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't think that's going to be possible. Could it replace like proofreading? Potentially. I'm not saying that proofreaders don't do an amazing job and have an incredibly intricate and necessary job, but that's closer to
More mechanical.
algorithmic. Right.
Yeah, it's more
Same thing with
mechanical.
copy editing. That's more mechanical, so that might be more at risk than line
Copy
and
editing is
dev.
probably going to be mostly done by machine within 5 years.
Right. And
I think that that's probably the low hanging fruit,
mhm,
and that's where it's going to go first. But the problem is with line editing, for example, is line editing, the AI is only going to make it as good as the AI can write. So it's going to take your prose, which is probably better than
and
what the
drag
AI
it
can
down.
write, and drag it down
Yep.
to the AI's level. That's not useful.
No.
Developmental editing is the same problem. So
Mhm.
you end up with I've done a developmental review. If you're going to use an AI for a developmental review, what I strongly recommend is to run it by several models or the same model several times because you're going to get different answers each time. So
Mhm.
that's the thing is all of these LLMs are actually large language models are essentially very, very advanced, complicated random word generators.
Yes.
They create sensible collections of words that are strung together in sentences that make sense to us, but they're essentially random sentences. They're
Hmm.
not actually
Right.
consistent.
It's mathematically predicted. It's not because there's a mind in there thinking about the answer.
So you can probably sort of fake having 10 beta readers read your book by feeding it to ChatGPT and Gemini
Yeah.
and Claude and Grok and whatever other ones you want to do, and then taking the collection of all of the results you got back from that, feeding it back into an AI, and asking it to analyze all of your beta reader reports for commonalities, for things
Yeah.
that they had that were the same across multiple reports,
Yep.
and then you can focus on those, and maybe those will be actually be things that you should be working on the
And
book.
that's a pretty big maybe too, because a lot of the times
It's a
it'll
big
miss
maybe.
really important stuff, or
It really
I've
will.
I've had it not understand a lot of things, like a lot of things that were important to characters and like metaphors and all of that like really deep like writerly stuff because it doesn't comprehend it. It can't. It
It
doesn't have
does
a
not.
soul. It does not have experiences. It can't relate to anything. It has no
It
ability to like conceive of that stuff.
it does very surface level analysis. If you handed
Hmm.
a pile of statistical data, it'll snap that stuff up and give you
Yep.
a great result. But with stuff that's with things that are more metaphor than they are
Right.
hard science, like with stuff that's more about feelings than numbers,
Because it
it
doesn't
doesn't
have
have
them.
feelings.
No, it has numbers. It has a lot of numbers. It doesn't have
Yeah,
feelings.
it doesn't have feelings,
And
and it
that's
doesn't understand feelings.
yeah, and that's why I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the art, it doesn't have a soul. And when it spits out text, unaltered text, it doesn't have a soul because it has never experienced those things. So it can kind of mirror what was written in other places, but it doesn't have the experience of being that thing or doing that thing the way a human does. Because I know what it means to stub my toe at 3 a.m. The computer does not.
Mhm.
Isn't.
And you'll get these moments of brilliance too.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen presenters on YouTube videos and stuff who are showing the AI writing their story, and they're like, "Look at that prose! Look at," and for like a paragraph or two, it really sometimes it creates stuff that you're just like, "Oh my God, I wish I'd written that. That
Yep.
was really good." But then the next chapter, the character will have like will suddenly have multiple personality disorder and will change who they are entirely,
Right.
and be acting in a way that does not cohesive with what was already written,
Mm-hmm.
because the AI just doesn't. That's not what it does. That's
Right. It's
not
not
where
designed for
its
that.
talents lie. Right.
And we're back to the monkeys and typewriters. It might pull off something really amazing every so often, but for the most part, you're gonna get a monkey with a typewriter.
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
so I think that we definitely don't need to be afraid of it as a future where artists and authors and everybody are going to get erased because the human connection from soul to soul is where art lives. And we can use AI to enhance what we do, fix our workflows, write our social media posts occasionally. I don't use it to write mine, I just use it to give me ideas. We can use it for a lot of things without replacing that soul to soul connection. And so it doesn't have to be an all in on AI or zero AI. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing zero sum game.
Yeah. I think we're seeing an increase in people focusing on the importance of person-to-person connections too.
Mm-hmm.
Partly in response to, I think people are starting to realize, hey, social media is really actually kind of bad for us.
It's awful.
Uh,
Oh my gosh, it's awful.
you know, maybe
Yeah.
this isn't working out so well. But also partly because of AI. Like we're realizing, oh, well, like the AI is I am watching people who AI is suddenly their best friend or their
Yep.
boyfriend, girlfriend, or their therapist or whatever. And
Yeah.
I worry about these things because I feel like that's taking somebody who's starving and then feeding them sand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually serving them, and it's not actually a kindness.
No, it's not.
If somebody is desperately lonely, like lonely to the point where it's hurting them, where it's
Yep. The
hurting their
loneliness
mental health,
epidemic is real.
it's real. It's absolutely real. If you feed them fake connection, though, that's like feeding a starving person a handful of sand. It will fill their belly for a couple of minutes, but it's not solving the problem.
No, and it's
It's
probably
not
going to
making
kill
them.
them in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, and we've already unfortunately
Yep.
seen people
Yeah.
run into that with AI,
And
which is
I've seen
unfortunate.
also AI induced psychosis and stuff where the narcissism inherent in some of the models has enhanced previously existing problems and people just go charging off into the sunset with it. So I know that's outside the scope of writing and outside the scope of our discussion, but I agree entirely that there are some really scary things happening in regards to the way some people are using AI as a replacement for human connection. And writers, our job is to make people feel things, is to, delight, as you say, but also make them experience emotions.
Whatever it is, yes,
Right, like
whatever the
sometimes you want to
emotion
take
is.
somebody's heart out and step on it a couple times in the middle of a book
Yeah,
because you have to.
yeah.
That's because you have to for the story.
And that is part of delighting the reader, even if they don't, even if they're feeling raw
That's fair.
terror or horror or sadness in the moment, that's still part of the whole delightful
Yeah,
experience, because that's why they're there. If they're there for a horror novel, they don't
right.
want,
That's fair.
like rainbows and unicorns. They want the horror novel,
That's fair. That's
and they
fair.
want to be horrified. That's
Yep.
what's delighting them.
Right, and I think that humans connecting to other humans creates that delight in a way a computer doesn't. You can't connect to a computer that way. You can only connect to a human being that way. So I believe that our industries in the creative arts, no matter what tech bros are trying to push and what certain businesses are attempting to pivot toward because they'd like to delete the creatives because we are unnecessary expense in their mind, which is going to go predictably for them. Like, no matter what certain people and businesses are trying to say, the human connection, the human creativity, the human soul cannot be erased. And I believe that this pivot toward using AI for everything by a lot of these companies is going to be very temporary as they discover how badly it's going to go for them. Like the replacement of the human.
Mhm.
Using it for things like helping to paint backgrounds or animators helping them animate faster, even if they're creating things like there's a million uses that don't replace a human being. And
Absolutely, yeah.
I think those are great.
Anything where the AI is augmenting a human, like most of our special effects in movies have been AI for at least the last 5 years, probably as
Mm-hmm.
much as 10 years now. Like when you see like when you see a science fiction blaster
Yep.
fire, that blaster was added with an AI special
Mm-hmm.
effect. Like that's been true for probably most of a decade at this point.
Yep.
But a human directed that process and had that, made the artist actually had control over exactly what that looks like, what color should it be, how fast should it move,
Yep.
all of these other features, and was able to create something beautiful, or not if they screw up. But
Right.
that's on the artist at that point. It's not on the machine.
Right. Just like any stroke of my brush when I'm painting is on me. It's not on my it. I mean, it might be on my pigments if they're garbage pigments, but like that's a different discussion. But like, it's still not replacing humans because the human creativity and spark is going to be there and it's going to remain there and it will not replace us. And I'm personally not afraid of it. I'm looking forward to when the waters settle a little bit and the sediment goes away and we get a little more clarity, because right now this is also new, so we're hearing both utopia and doomsday in the same discussion, and neither
Yeah.
one of those things is correct
Mm.
unless we don't do something about the environmental situation in general with tech, in which case doomsday is more likely, but that's,
I mean, honestly, this in terms of the environment, our biggest issue is still the cars, believe it or not.
yep, I believe
You
that.
know,
The transportation industry and not just cars but like boats and shipping, like the amount of fuel that they use in that and the way that it is not clean in any
yeah,
way.
no, yeah,
Like airplanes are not good for anything. And also there's a lot of strip mining and stuff happening for the tech industry in vulnerable places in the world that is destroying them.
that's
So
absolutely
while
correct.
server farms and stuff are a major problem and the water consumption is an issue, we do have bigger fish that we
Yeah.
need to address in terms of survivability and long-term existence.
It's almost 1,500 ChatGPT prompts to reach the equivalent environmental damage of driving a gasoline-powered car 1 mile.
Well, I think that is an excellent moment to end on. I think that is a really like that's an excellent thought to end on and chew on because like the environmental impact matters and we really need to
It
consider
does.
that. However, we also need to look at the environment as a holistic thing, not just one issue at a time, cherry picking things because it matches what we're feeling right now.
We should all be doing everything we can to reduce our environmental impact as much as
Yep.
humanly possible. And whatever that looks like for any individual person, I mean, I think that's each of our responsibility to try and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, in addition to the personal responsibility, we have to, as a society, hold the businesses accountable because I can only do so much. No matter if I go to an electric car, walk everywhere, and do the like all my garbage fits into a mason jar per year kind of thing. I
Mhm.
cannot do a dang thing to offset strip mining in China.
Agreed.
So,
Well, you can to some degree. You can insist
well, yeah.
through your purchases that
Yes.
they stop that the companies that are making the tech from the stuff that's being strip mined stop doing that.
Right, don't buy Shein clothing. Don't buy the stuff that's being made by horrendously badly treated
Right.
people in Indonesia. Like, vote with your wallet.
Stay
But I
informed about your wallet. Yeah.
mm-hmm. But there's only so much I can do about like how many trees I can plant as a human being
Agreed.
personally.
Yeah.
So, we need to hold people accountable and be aware of our own consumption, but let's not fearmonger things that don't need to be fearmongered. Be aware of things, but don't allow it to be the only thing you pay attention to, because the blinders will result in division where there should not be, and that'll take our eye off the ball.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, thank you so much for this amazing chance to talk with you, Kevin. I'm really glad that you took the time today. You are always a
You
joy to
got
spend
to.
time with, and I appreciate your time and your expertise, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. When this goes up, we will be in Las Vegas, so I'm excited to hopefully see you in Vegas.
Yeah, I'll be there and look forward to seeing you too.
All right, take care, friend.
Take care now.